Also out of Chicago, a police officer faces 2 felony charges for shooting an unarmed man in the back at a busy subway station last year. Officer Melvina Bogard surrendered to investigators Thursday after the Cook County State's Attorney filed charges of felony aggravated battery with a firearm and official misconduct. Bogard and Officer Bernard Butler were trying to arrest Ariel Roman for allegedly moving in between train cars. Roman was shot after a struggle at the bottom of the subway station's escalators. Now, after the incident, the police superintendent said the 2 officers should be fired for, quote, violating multiple department policies. Bogard and Butler were stripped of their police powers in 2020 and placed on desk duty. Bogard was released on her own recognizance. Her next hearing is on August 18th. If convicted, she faces up to 30 years in prison. Let me go back to my panel here. We have Brother Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show, Dr. Nyambi Carter, Howard University Department of Political Science, and Kelly Bethea from JD Communications, who's a strategist there. First, where do we start with this case? Dr. Carter, we've talked about these police-involved shootings. We talked about, even with the situation of botched rape. What's next?
Look, I think you can't intellectualize this, right? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that something is rotten here. And I think when we saw here with Mr. Roman being shot in the back, again, moving between trains, was it worth the time? And maybe asking our questions, a little empathy would go a long way. This man is resisting arrest because we know arrest can be catastrophic in our communities. We don't just get to come back from those. And so we're resisting arrest over something really small and petty. Probably the biggest danger was to himself. So to then go from there to being shot in the back, right, in a busy train where that shot could have gone to anyone. It could have hurt anyone. It really made me think of Oscar Grant. And I think in many cases, like you just talked about in the previous segment with these children, the trauma that police are causing seems to be outweighing the good that the idea of them protecting the public, right, is supposed to bring. So I think, if anything, this again, it goes back to your earlier point, which is it about training? Is it about who we are attracting to the police force? Is it the fact that we've told the police officers that it's a us and them out there and every day that they have to fight to get home? And so whatever means, whatever force they use is okay, because at the end of the day, we as civilians are the real enemies, right? And again, I don't know. Right? Again, we can say defund the police and we can say all of these things, but for now, these people are still here and they're still employed. And we see, despite these calls to defund the police, he's actually investing more monies into police department. And so, it's hard to say what to do, but I do think one of the things we can do is get rid of qualified immunity. And when we start making police pensions responsible instead of citizens responsible for the lawsuits that are rightly coming from these misuse of force and these abuse and murder cases, then maybe we might see some movement in how the police think about treating their public.
Kelly, I'm wondering, when I see, and Dr. Carter, I appreciate that for that insight. Kelly, I'm wondering, when I look at cases like this, especially when it involves Black officers, I'm thinking to myself, do the Black officers understand the dynamic? I think that they do, but at the same time, it's like when you're in those very kind of, in the case of being in that train station, when you're in that moment, do you really, I'm hoping that Black officers at least say, you know what, maybe I should try to settle this in a different way. My concern is that Black officers if they're with their, with white officers, or they may feel like they're compelled to respond to a situation that is similar to what we've been seeing in over these past few years. Can you help me to understand that piece, Kelly?
I can try. Well, first of all, you keep saying JD Communications. That's not the name of my business. JD is my title.
JD, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah,
Kelly.
JD is my title for law. But
So
I just wanted to make clear. So that,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So just for clarification, but you're right. It is, I can't speak for the mind of a Black officer, right? I do know that I have friends in the force who every day put their lives on the line to make sure that we are safe in my respective jurisdiction, right? I also know that when it comes to my friends, they have the mindset and are very aware of police relations within the Black community. So they, to my knowledge, from what they have told me, they do everything possible, really go above and beyond situations in which they don't do things like this, right? They understand that if they weren't in the uniform, that could be them with anybody else. Without the uniform, you are still a Black man, you are still a Black woman, and you are still considered a threat by way of your skin color. Your skin is the threat for a lot of these officers. So when a Black person who is an officer does something like this, it makes me feel like, one, they should know better, but also it is just reckless. Like in the legal definition, it is reckless because it feels deliberate, but it's also unjustifiable. And to an extent, it feels like they have a disregard for the situation as a whole, in that you know what the police relations are in your jurisdiction that you are supposed to be protecting and serving. You know how your people are. You know, that's not an excuse for criminal behavior, but from a cultural standpoint, you understand us. At least you should if you are us. So when things like this happen, it feels as though you basically breached your duty as a Black member of the community and as a police officer, because you're not protecting and serving. And you also disregard the fact that if you weren't in that uniform, that could have been you. So there's levels to it. I can't go into the mind of it. I'm not trying to put blame on Black officers, you know, like tokenizing them in a sense, but there should be an awareness that you have as a Black officer such that you're not in this situation. And that you do everything in your power to de-escalate, no matter what the cost is. You know, not saying your life, but a lot of these situations aren't necessarily life-threatening from the view of a police officer, because they're the ones with the gun. They're the ones with the weapon. As far as I saw in this tape, they were unarmed. So they have all the power. They just need to use it responsibly and not reactionary. And that's what I'm seeing here. And it's a shame because this did not have to happen.
Folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Seek.com is one of the partners with us here, Roland Martin Unfiltered. If you would like to take advantage of their headset, as well as their virtual reality headset, or their earphones right here. Of course, there's these amazing, the sound's also amazing, folks. 360-degree sound. The bass is tremendous. You can use that VIP code right there, RMVIP21, RMVIP21. Use that promo code, and then a portion of the proceeds comes back to us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. And so please, if you want to support Seek.com, and you can check out their virtual reality content through their site as well, CEEK.com. And folks,